Hey everyone, thanks so much for attending our Q2 webinar. This is going to be Amazon, Walmart, and Instacart performance data. I am going to try to introduce folks. There we go. It's been a bit since I've done a webinar. So anyway, I'm Melissa Burdick, president and co-founder of Pacvue. I have two amazing guests with me today, Destaney Wishon, CEO of BetterAMS, one of our great partner agencies. Destaney herself is an amazing thought leader. And then Riyaad Edoo, Senior Director of Product Management at Pacvue, has a tremendous amount of knowledge in the ad space coming from Group M. And I also brought my swear jar today because Ree sometimes swears and he's usually pretty good on recorded. Yeah, no, I know. We've implemented some more recordings internally, so he's like on his best behavior. Just kidding, that's a joke. We're gonna liven up today's webinar with jokes because data can sometimes be a little boring, but not our data. All right, so here's our agenda. What's new in Q2? A Q2 report deep dive, category insights, Q&A. So we'll have a live Q&A at the end. So put in your questions during the presentation and we'll get to them at the end or ask them at the end. We're also gonna do a Prime Day quick recap. We have some great data to share with you. But of course, please download our report so you get the full thing as well. And for those of you who are attending your first webinar with us and have no idea who Pacvue is, hopefully you do, but we are the leading enterprise platform for brands, retailers, and agencies looking to manage e-commerce advertising across 30+ retailers and growing all the time by combining holistic performance with recommended actions. Follow us on LinkedIn so you get the most up-to-date information on retail media and e-commerce. All right, so we're going to kick off with Prime Day. And here's some of my some insights. Destaney and Ree, please jump in when you want to or can, but wanted to give a call out to Jeff Cohen. If you are not following Jeff Cohen on LinkedIn, you should absolutely do that because he's at Amazon. He always gives great information about Amazon advertising and what's going on. Another one is Stratably. I think it's a subscription, but pretty cheap and has a lot of great information. Carrie Masters is a great resource. Destaney is a great resource. So lots of great people to follow to get up-to-date information, including Pacvue. So let's kind of kick into a little the things that happened. Ree and Destaney jump in. Heavy discounting on Amazon devices. So you can see, according to Stratably, they had the highest amount of discounts, 48%. Interestingly, a Wall Street Journal article published, I think last week, said that Amazon has drastically reduced the number of items it sells under its own brands. And the company is discussing the possibility of exiting the private label business, which I know probably gives relief to a lot of brands. Their business has 243,000 products across 45 different house brands as of 2020, which is a huge amount of private label. So the strategy is thinking of really reducing that amount of private label to more of a target up and up strategy as an example of just some key items. This year, there's a lot better personalization. I've heard a lot of people saying, you know, it was easier to find deals. Potentially, Amazon's doing a better job when you enter the homepage to like more personalized deals for you. There's also a big focus on CPG. So the Department of Labor released a new report, 12% inflation year over year for groceries with a 9% average. Food, if you've gone to the grocery store, food is so expensive right now. And so getting a 30% discount on chips and trash bags was a really good deal and people came in for those deals. There's a big focus for CPG. So I've been hearing a lot anecdotally from clients about just how great their sales were for consumer packaged goods, which always get a lift during Prime Day just because of the increase in traffic. But this year, it seems like just so much of those products were being bought. I have my influencers up here. So Amazon is doing a lot more work on influencers and influencers driving discovery and traffic. This is Charli D'Amelio. Destiny's like, how do you know her name? And the reason is because I have a 13-year-old daughter who's not supposed to be on TikTok, but I can't figure out the parental controls, so she is. And so Charli D'Amelio was talking about Prime Day. Last year, these influencers really didn't talk too much about Prime Day, but this year, Amazon did a really good job, or much better job, priming them for Prime Day, understanding their deals, bringing them out to creative houses, telling them about it. Couple misses this year. So it seems like and we can hear from Destaney on this, but it seems like there's always glitches, but this year it seems like a lot of coupons didn't go live, coupons were pulled down, people were scrambling. Another thing that kind of messed people up was that Amazon got rid of the real-time sales module in Vendor Central, so they couldn't really view their real-time sales too easily. But good news is that the real-time sales API is coming out soon, and we will have that integrated. So what do you guys think? What do you guys see? That was a lot.
That was a lot. I think you just covered every important topic possible with Prime Day. I would say on our end, one thing we saw is just as things have become more pay to play and as consumer sentiment shifts to understanding Prime Day is synonymous like Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So they're holding up, waiting to buy their products the week before, their focus is getting discounts on Prime Day. Brands have shifted to paying for more of that traffic. I mean, we saw some of our brands top of search would be around $7 to $8 average CPC. So the brands that shifted to a full funnel approach and really made sure that they were moving up with influencers and driving traffic from Instagram and TikTok and then remarketing all that traffic just did incredible. They did a great job of kind of capturing the full funnel and then really analyzing their results on a cost per acquisition model rather than just being strictly pay to play, because that inventory is just getting more and more expensive as conversion rates are incredibly high because customers love shopping on Prime Day. So that was something that was kind of cool to see, is really see the full picture come into fruition this year.
Awesome. All right. So Riyaad's going to take it away with some data.
Sure.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, so lots of activity this year. I guess, you sort of just talked about it too, just how crazy those couponing and discounts were. It was really down to the wire for a lot of the brands in terms of what's included. Was the brand profitable enough? Was Amazon profitable enough? Lots of back and forth in terms of how they balance between the two. Who funded what to keep deals alive, I know is a really big one this year. So I know for a lot of us, just really glad that it's over and done with. So in total, keep in mind, we're taking a look at just sponsored products when we're looking at this slide. But overall, Prime Day average ad spend about 252% higher, than the prior week's average daily spend. It's about 36% growth in Prime Day year over year. About 4% higher on the first day for sponsored products, 6% higher on the first day for sponsored brands. That's something that we continue to see year over year. Most of those increases are always going to come on sponsored brands, which is up about 281% or so week over week. And then the first day of Prime Day, about 258% on the second day. Overall, SPA spend increased about 48% year over year. Sponsored brand ad spend is about 259% up week over week on the first day and about 238% on the second day. Year over year, it still looks relatively flat with less than about 3% growth. But as we saw in the Pacvue quarterly CPC report, ad spend on sponsored brands have decreased about 20% year over year in Q2. That second day of Prime Day saw higher CPCs than the first. Sponsored product CPC on the second day was about 208 compared to about 190 on the first day, about a 75% week over week increase. Sponsored brands, similar story. On the second day was about 205 compared to about $1.87 on the first day, which is about a 26% week over week increase. So while sponsored brand was certainly less aggressive in this space, the ad type still saw really great returns for the brands. I mean, sponsored brand ROAS was about 578 for both days on Prime Days, which is about a 59% week over week increase and about 10% growth year over year from them. Amazon had done quite a bit of testing in terms of what products or ASINs they'd prioritize and show within SPA, which I think we are all pretty comfortable saying that it worked out quite well for them. I think coming out of Prime Day, there was actually quite an interesting disparity in terms of the ASINs that CPGs in particular were promoting. Were they evergreen ASINs that they had as a part of their FY sort of forecast, or were they pretty distinct or unique to the Prime Day window? And I think with a lot of them, that trade-up strategy or what that sort of re-engagement strategy looks like is going to be really interesting to watch, especially over the next quarter. And then more importantly, as we get into Q3 and Q4, what the sort of PO changes on the Amazon side end up looking like. Quite a bunch of reports from brands coming in that the POs coming in after Prime Day were not necessarily as expected. Amazon obviously trying to monitor and optimize their inventory quite closely. And in turn, many of the ASINs that brands are relying for a higher contribution to ROI were not reordered. A couple of ways to deal with that. We've seen brands get really aggressive with their vendor managers. We've seen other instances in which they're guaranteeing larger orders, like Born to Run. So I think it'll be really interesting to see what that period or window ends up looking like. And then in turn, if they're out of market for a significant period of time, what cost per reentry looks like, especially on SPAs.
Awesome. All right, we are going to head into what's new for Q2.
Perfect. So out of the last 6 months, I would say Q2 was probably one of the slower quarters in terms of just logging into Advertising Console and seeing all the new, fun, and shiny updates. I think there's been a lot of testing. We're seeing really tiny tweaks to the sponsor brands layouts, the new, sponsored display layouts and things like that, but not a lot of exciting things on the front end. We do have new things like sponsored display launches, branded search metrics. As sponsored display is pushing on and off platform more and more frequently. They're trying to give us more data to support that, like what we see on DSP. All Amazon sponsored display ads will now serve on and off with contextual targeting. This is a really key note because sponsored display used to be really granular when it was a PDA. So you could select specific products and target them very, very granularly. But now if we're going to be running on and off platform and moving up the funnel a little bit more, we're going to see a lot more ad inventory open up, probably more impressions, potential to really scale that ad type more than we've been able to. Amazon has released suggested bids for specific events. So what we really saw this was with Prime Day. So for the first time ever, we could go ahead and see, hey, this is a suggested bid for Prime Day alone. Now, I really liked watching this release in the groups because everyone was like, stay away from this. You're going to spend a ton of money. Don't increase your bids. All of us, I think, are pretty much along the lines of, from a general strategy, don't increase your bids too much unless you're doing ranking or market share plays because it gets expensive fast. So I think the idea is great. I'm really excited to start seeing Amazon give us more data and more recommendations that can help the brand, but also know it's advantageous to bid higher on a day like Prime Day because Amazon's going to make more money and maybe more impressions isn't what you're looking for as a brand. So it's a great rollout, super excited, but be cautious when you're looking at your events like a potential, Q4, Black Friday, Cyber Monday suggested bids. Bulk Sheets now provides ASIN eligibility status for sponsor products. I think this is always an issue on the advertising side of making sure all of our ASINs are eligible because it's been a pain to click through every single campaign, log in, and then actually see within the ad group whether or not you have that status. New global features on manager accounts, again, really tiny, fun tweaks, and then language translations available for sponsored display. So sponsored display does have the ability to write copy. So those things go a really long way when you're running international campaigns.
If anyone wants to, what's that? Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, if anyone, yeah, good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, low-key, one of my favorite things about the suggested bid for the events is they actually have like the lead in and lead out period. And that's something that like everybody talks about. It's something that we never really see happen. We always talk about, nope, it's not just about the day, really reconsider what it looks like for those 3 to 5 days leading into it. But we honestly never really see it. Everybody just goes, kind of nuts the day before. But this year, that 5 days sort of like pre-Prime Day actually increase in ad spend and subsequent ROAS was actually quite fantastic. And we've never seen that before. So I actually kind of like that tidbit there.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anyone wants to test that suggested bids for events with us, email us because that'd be fun. That'd be a fun to do. That's
so here's
yeah.
A fun screenshot of what this looks like. So every time you go to add keywords or your targets, you will see the suggested, and suggested bid for Prime Day was the first recommendation we've been given. I'm really curious with some of the new data we're getting, and we're going to be getting into a little bit later with Stream, if they're going to give us more recommendations around time of week, time of month, and start getting more specific, because Prime Day is fun and exciting, but it's not giving us much else. So I'm very curious to see what the sentiment is and what direction they're going to go with this.
That's a lot of recommendations and a lot of things for you to choose from.
That's a lot. So I think this is the more fun and exciting aspects of the rollouts. Amazon Marketing Stream has been launched. I'm going to save that for the end because that's probably the biggest thing on our end as advertisers that we're all really excited about. Sponsored display launches match target reporting in the Amazon Ads console, just more data, more resources for us to be able to download our reports, pull everything, scrape everything similar to what you do on a search term report and launch new campaigns. Amazon DSP Advanced certification launches on the Learning Console. So that's obviously a really exciting one as well. More education in the space, I think, is a really good thing because it is such a new industry. So, Pacvue has an incredible DSP course, things like that. I sent my whole team through it. If anyone's been up to date on their Amazon certifications, it's gotten way better than what it was 6 years ago. It's a lot more fun. So definitely hop in, make sure you have all of those. Introducing suggested product sort option for sponsored products, really tiny things that just make the user experience a lot better. And then advertisers can now measure total ad attributed impact using omni-channel metrics. This is a big one. And I think this is where the direction of the industry is going between stream and omni-channel metrics. Everything's getting a little bit more expensive and a lot harder to track. So the more data we have to figure out where our ad spend and our dollars need to be going is just going to help us improve our total impact. So very excited about that one. And then the next slide, which I feel like should be the biggest announcement of the quarter, is finally having access to Amazon Marketing Stream and hourly data. So the number one most asked question I've had for probably the last 5 years of everything in Amazon is, what is my opinion on day parting? You know, especially brands that are coming from Google, especially smaller brands that have a limited budget and they're not sure what to do with it. And they have kind of misconceptions about the ad platform. They've been needing this data. And my answer has always been, well, we don't really have the insights to make really good decisions. So test it within your own account, but it's not really scalable. Well, Amazon's trying to solve that piece of the puzzle. So here's a screenshot directly pulled from Pacvue for one of our campaigns. And what's really cool about this is we can actually see our cost per clicks at a certain time of day and how that changes over time. Even cooler, I can pull all kinds of other data. So I like to overlay my conversion rate data and my cost per click data to see if there's any trends that I can then utilize a day parting feature that's gonna make sense and make my ads perform better. Now, as a little asterisk, I do like to say, Amazon is still one of the highest purchase intent models ever. So if they're clicking on your ad, they're probably planning on purchasing at some point in time, whether that's adding to cart at 1 a.m. and then not buying until 9. Those things make strategy a little bit easier, but having this data, having the resource finally to justify a lot of our decision-making has been probably, in my opinion, the most exciting update of Q2.
Yeah, this is my favorite one by far as well. I mean, day parting historically was either a giant sort of like test and learn endeavor or largely just made up. You know, you get like the sales coming out of brand analytics and we're just like, all right, well, great, my sales are all happening at 7 p.m. I'm going to run advertising then. The reality is that people are actually interacting with these ad units at maybe at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon and then not checking out till 7 p.m. So Amazon passing through the interaction data in contrast to the sales data, I think is actually fantastic. You know, as we were sort of building this out in Pacvue too, you know, it was really the question of like, how much data do we want to give people? How much is just sort of like a big pain in the butt before it's actually not helpful? So because we get all of this in now, API and coming in every 30 minutes, the nice thing is we can allow users the option to say, is this campaign designed for reach? Is it designed for CVR? Do we maybe have a larger ad group that we need to maximize towards ROAS? What you need to do is hit the button and say what you're looking for, and we can pre-calculate what that CPC depression or influx looks like, which was probably one of my favorite things done in Pacvue so far as well.
Yeah, this is big, super exciting. I hope that the rest of the retailers follow providing more access to data like this. So, which I think is the trend. All right. Okay, so now we're going to get into the Q2 CPC report deep dive. I'm going to take us through the data, and Destaney and Ree are going to, Ree has ad jokes, Ree to chime in with jokes. So he wants to make sure it's not too boring for everybody. All right, so what happened? Ad spend increased quarter over quarter, flat year over year. CPCs remained relatively flat, with Amazon sponsored products decreasing just 0.8%. That's pretty flat quarter over quarter and increasing 1.6% year over year. Walmart has a really great story this quarter. We're going to talk about it. They did a couple of fun things that have really improved their ROAS and CPCs. And then I always like looking at keyword trends because this is where you see what is the top trending toy. And this year or this quarter, it's Squishmallow. Does anyone know what if I'm saying that right, Squishmallow replaced? What was the top? Does anyone know the top trending one last quarter?
It was part of the
it
webinar,
says it right there. That's not fair. All right. So 2021 versus 2022. So here's some of the trends. Very seasonal for Mother's Day and Father's Day. So we see all the summer tops, Something interesting about fashion is much more profitable than, consumer electronics product. So the fact that Amazon is getting more people coming in to buy swimsuits, I think during Prime Day, they claimed that in the US, people bought 1.2 million sunglasses and 1 million swimsuits. So, or I think that was Prime Day. So the more people buying high margin stuff, the better for Amazon. Interesting to see, Squishmallow replaces Pop It as the interesting thing. And then Ree, what's your joke?
Yeah, no. So I should caveat when I put a joke, you have to remember that like, I'm not that funny. But I think the Squishmallow thing was certainly like interesting. I mean, it really sort of exploded during the pandemic, but then there was like a ton of like YouTube videos of people just like hunting for them. And I only know because my daughter is obsessed with it. And then I think there was a March New York Times article or something that talked about it. They've got like a ton of variants. I think they had like an Easter special or something like that. But a really good example of when sort of like lack of in-store distribution really allows things like this to over-index online. I mean, even with the swimsuit stuff too, I mean, I think it's really interesting when you get a little bit further down in terms of like overall search terms. I want to say it was like a ruffled, like one off the shoulder sort of thing. A really good example of how PR and like other offline activity really impacts buying behavior on Amazon. Not always going to be a branded search. There was one or two brands in particular. I'm going to butcher the name, but I think it was like Hylor, ended up doing a really good job in terms of capturing top of the funnel traffic when they had PR and market.
I love how you know the latest fashion, Ree, with off the shoulder.
I'm very fashionable.
Yeah, this My Orders thing, it kills me. I don't understand why it keeps showing up. So if anyone knows the My Orders answer, let me know. But maybe people just can't find their orders, and I don't know. That's it. I keep seeing that. It's annoying. All right, so we brought data together sourced from Pacvue, and hopefully people know that we are sister companies with Helium 10 with the same ownership. So we have a ton of great data in our proprietary database that provides a really great view. When you're looking at benchmark reports, one of the things to understand is what's the client base that makes up this report. So for us, now that we have tons and tons of 3P data and 1P data, this is a really great view to understand really what's happening across the board. So what did happen? CPCs were flat, increased moderately for sponsored brand ads. Click-through rates decreased for sponsored product, but increased for sponsored ads, and conversion and ROAS declined for both sponsored product and sponsored brand. This is the Amazon data. We'll go through Walmart and Instacart in a sec. All right, so what happened, and this is where Destaney and Ree, feel free to jump in with any kind of insights, but sponsored product spend was up slightly. So for the quarter, sponsored products up 5.5%, sponsored brand down 4.5%, quarter over quarter pretty flat for sponsored products, and then for sponsored brand down for 20%. Any reason why you guys think sponsored brands are turning down so much?
Well, actually, so for 1P vendors, I know that they've had quite a bit of interesting set of negotiations as they go into like Q3 in terms of what the priority ASINs look like going into the next year. And for a lot of them where Amazon is sort of stretched for profitability, as are the brands, we see Amazon asking for more and more. I think that brands are playing a bit more hardball, so I actually expected that number to be a little bit higher, but we've seen some dampened Q1 activity from larger enterprise and CPG organizations that maybe don't have everything in markets or, in a standoff with Amazon. So they're actually dark for a little bit. In turn, when they come back into market, they tend to over-index on SPA. So I'd say no surprises there in terms of that split, but I actually thought that SPA was going to be a little bit more. I would say probably doing a little bit of a better job coming to a better middle ground a little bit earlier. But we certainly saw that the past 2 years in terms of those tough negotiations between brands and Amazon.
On the sponsored brand side, I'm also super curious because they haven't really released any more advertising inventory here. So they've made almost all their investments in sponsored display. We're seeing some rollouts for sponsored brands video being off platform and the OTT rollout, but with limited inventory, it truly becomes pay to play. So when CPCs get expensive, and as mentioned, everyone starts focusing more on efficiency due to the industry, that's an ad type that I think gets underutilized because they can't afford it.
Interesting. Cool. All right, so click-through rates. So click-through rates for sponsored product ads decreased slightly quarter over quarter, on average 0.32%. And click-through rates for sponsored brand ads increased. 10.3%, quarter over quarter up 0.64% with a year increase of 33%. I don't know, do you guys want to talk a little bit about the attributed lifestyle images now available on Sponsored Brand?
Yeah, I assume that would play a big role. Amazon released the data that a lifestyle image has the opportunity to increase click-through rates around 200%. We've seen similar, really, really strong lifestyle image, and making sure you're dominating that top of search placement does incredibly well. I mean, you can add an influencer that you're utilizing from your off platform. You can have your lifestyle images with all of your products, which can increase your basket quantity. Like, there's so much opportunity with it, and it takes up such a large portion of the page. I think it was an awesome rollout.
Yeah. CPCs remain relatively flat quarter over quarter. Anything on this one? Pretty flat, which is good. All right. And then conversion rates decreased in Q2. So sponsored product conversion was down 4.2%, sponsored brand pretty flat. And then quarter over quarter, both, relatively flat at a 1%. And then ROAS had very little change during Q2. Sponsored product ROAS down 4.4%, with the quarter down 2.5%. Sponsored brand ROAS was pretty much flat, down 0.7%, and kind of the same for year over year. All right, we'll do some quick category insights, and we just pulled out some interesting stuff that we saw. So the pet category, CPCs were up dramatically. I don't know if there's any people in the pet category watching, but I'm sure you're feeling some pain. In May, there's been a bigger focus on the pet category. In May 2022, Amazon hosted the first ever Amazon Pet Day. This led to a 77% increase in ad spend year over year in the month of May in the pet category, and a 37% increase in CPCs. Amazon sponsored product CPC increased a dramatic 27% quarter over quarter to an average CPC of $2.38. And ROAS for sponsored products saw a 13.6% decrease. Conversion rates also decreased for sponsored products in Q2. So I guess the net of it is the pet category is getting more competitive.
Yeah, and it really is such like a great category for growth. It has been for a few years. I think they're projected to have something like a 17% growth this year, and then they maintain double-digit growth in e-commerce overall, like throughout the next 5 years. And when you think about it, there's so many specialty and niche products in that space. Can be hard to find. It's a product size that nobody really wants to deal with and carry home. I wouldn't be surprised to see some increased aggressiveness in this space, not just from Amazon, but from other retailers as well. This is always one of those categories. There's always between this and toys, and I think toys might have won, but it was always the battle of like who was going to hit 40% e-com penetration first. But no, I love the potential of this category. I think it's going to be really fun over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and just another thing, Amazon, I can't remember the name of the program, but they've integrated almost like an Instacart-like service. I know because I have this special dog food that is not sold directly through Amazon, but I'm able to buy it through a local pet retailer that they deliver to my door, but I buy it on Amazon. It's almost like an Instacart-like service. And that is, dog food is really heavy. It's not a great thing to ship. So if you think about the economics, that's a lot better for Amazon, is to leverage, local people to be able to deliver some of that specialty dog food that's really heavy. This dog food is high margin, but anyways. All right, so the auto categories. So we saw a decrease in CPC and an increase in spend here, and a bit more background on the auto category. It's been slow to invest in Amazon traditionally in this category. However, Amazon is testing new programs for non-endemic auto clients. I was at Cannes this year, was lucky enough to get to go, and Alan Moss, the VP of ads, was talking about Hyundai. So he didn't talk about CPG clients, he talked about Hyundai and then Amazon Alexa. So just kind of shows the importance of the non-endemics. And let's see, so most auto advertisers are still facing out of stocks due to supply chain manufacturing delays, but are participating in retail sponsored events. So Amazon has this maintenance month in the spring, drive into outdoors in the summer, and winterization in the winter and fall, which require vendors to pre-purchase packages inclusive of STV and DSP campaigns. And this in turn could affect sponsored ads investment to spike in order to remain relevant and top of mind in the category. So a little bit on the auto category, and then clothing, shoes, and jewelry. Amazon's really wanting to improve and get more out of the fashion category. This is where I really think influencers are going to help Amazon because they really focus on the beauty and fashion space. So we're seeing more and more of these influencers drive discovery and curation into Amazon fashion.
Yeah, I think you could do like an hour deep dive on just that category alone, with the cost of gold going down in Q2. You've got a number of new 3P sellers in the space, plus that, the wedding boom from all of the COVID delays. Like that category is primed for growth too. I think you're going to see that throughout the summer and even as we close out the year, and even when we think about like clothing in particular, I think one of the nice things that Amazon did this year that's maybe a little bit different than other years are sort of like the bigger like name brand labels participating in Prime Day. So I think as we sort of dig into like, what percent they were offering across the board, we'll see that there's a number of new participants in Prime Day this year that we maybe haven't talked about yet.
Even, the beauty space and the fashion space, the designer brands been very reticent to go on Amazon, for obvious reasons, but we are seeing such an increase as they understand that's where their consumers are. So that's going to be another interesting one to watch is what brands are continuing to go direct with Amazon. All right, we're going to head into Walmart. Take it away, Ree. What was new?
Yeah, I love Walmart this quarter. I think they did so many like great things. So I mean, one, obviously the second price auction launched to resounding success, making advertising more efficient, and Walmart really delivering on an ask that I think they've got ever since WMC launched. I mean, to be honest, So as a reminder, Walmart is calling this a an advanced second price auction since they're using content relevance as a qualifying factor for if you pay above or below your next competitor. While advertisers obviously elated with performance, I think we're still seeing like a lot of questions as to what relevance means to their accounts. So we see quite a bit of like creativity in terms of like custom scorings based on content completeness. For some brands trying to infer the right to win, there's clearly some sort of layer of like category level sales considerations that they're taking into account. So I think it becomes really interesting. The dual accounts, another really, really cool one that I was really happy that they launched. Essentially allows advertisers to test different like copy and creative on their SBAs. So for organizations looking to run 360-degree campaigns outside of just standard A/B tests, being able to test against the echo effect when national media is a market, I think really sort of breathes new life into how and why SBAs are used on the Walmart side. Top of search trends, another really, really big one and kind of a favorite of mine. Not just because it was my request, shout out to our solid WMC team and Tarang, but this level of insights is literally fantastic. We use it for demand planning, to identify winners in the space. More importantly, getting a closer look at like the value of the placement. What does click and conversion share look like in these top positions? What keywords correlate to browsing behavior? What's the ASP in these positions and how does that compare to the items that you have in market? What organic visibility actually results in incremental revenue? Oftentimes we talk about top of page visibility, and I think for a lot of brands, there's a rush to want top of page visibility, but when we also ask why, I think you get a lot of really interesting answers. Is this a saliency play? Are we looking at brand recall in this space? Are we assuming a revenue lift? And historically, that was really difficult to do. With this data, I think it makes it a bit more apparent as to what's actually is revenue positive from an organic perspective. And then lastly, the item recommendations, which are essentially used to, define like category level winners on the Walmart side that are not included in advertising. Walmart, by making these a bit more transparent, are expecting a decreased CPC and an increased ROAS due to its position within the category. A lot of that driving the insinuation that the category level sales is playing into the content relevancy on the SEM side. It's an interesting one. I think it's a really solid foundation for a new data set. I would imagine there's quite a bit they want to play with more here. So I think this one is an interesting release only because they can do so much with it. And we go down to the next one. Yep, CPC down, ROAS up, huge positive story for Walmart. Again, on the backs of two of their big changes, the enhanced search relevancy, which was essentially a blocker for what you can put into market based on organic position, plus how you align to the B tree that the SERPs were aligned with, plus the second price auction. So ad spend on Walmart up about 27% quarter over quarter, but decreased about 3.82% when we look year over year, which we could talk about in a second. As a result, CPCs in Q2 averaged about 80 cents, a decrease of about 23% quarter over quarter, down almost 30% year over year. I think it'd be really interesting to see what this does for diminishing return logics on Walmart and what it allows brands to invest in as they go forward. ROAS follows the same story. about 483. That's an increase of about 71% quarter over quarter and 82% year over year. That enhanced search relevancy seems to also have a positive impact on ad engagement. Click-through rate in the space up about 43% quarter over quarter, which is literally insane. We see quite a big wiggle room on competitive targeting now, and while it's not easy, it's certainly more possible. So I think I'd love to see this function deliver on more share shift strategies that we see on Amazon, but don't necessarily see on Walmart yet.
Yeah, the key takeaway for me, and I hope for the audience, is if you're not on Walmart, you should be. This is a great improvement. There's a first mover advantage for people that come in early and win. So if you're not on Walmart and we're kind of considering it, definitely think about testing it out again. And as you can see, the metrics are good.
Yep. I think for the Omni and sort of like non-Amazon players, they've been so aggressive in the space and making their platforms better and giving advertisers the confidence to invest. It's been really, really refreshing. Obviously fantastic to work with, but I think for advertisers, it's a really cool time. Just taking a look at the spend differences. So CPC decreased significantly in Q2, which we talked about. Spend increased about 27% and then bounced back to levels that I don't think we've seen since Q2 of 2021. And we'll probably continue to see the aggressiveness in the space. When we're looking at year over year numbers, keep in mind, tons of brands in 1H of last year, in particular 3Ps, just started to experiment with what Walmart.com can do for them. We also saw their expansion to international sellers. So we're really just seeing that even out now. Also testing on the trade desk from within your Walmart budgets definitely impacted when we're looking at just search numbers overall, but investment is certainly up in the space. We know brands are going to be aggressive. They put a lot in faith in the second price auction, which is paying off well. And then as brands sort of like shift strategy into the back half of the year to maximize total distribution points, I think we'll see quite a bit more in the search space in particular.
Yeah, and Walmart's being very aggressive, offering a lot of incentives for people to start advertising just to try out the platform. So I think that we're going to continue to see a lot of spend in this space. All right, let's move to Instacart.
Instacart too, and I mean, not to be left out, Instacart also did a ton of work in Q2. First and foremost, I guess, Canadian expansion, if I wanted to start at the bottom of the page. Initial partnerships in Canada were quite limited, but I think you'll find quite a bit of scale there. They've certainly worked on that in the past 12 months or so. So it really is prime for advertising now. Landing pages and shoppable videos sort of round out a really interesting spot for Instacart. Really great like development and product teams. And I really like that they're testing the new formats. Instacart as an organization is starting to think about how consumers interact with brands, on Instacart, and if they can use media on their own platform to augment that. I think we're still going to have questions as to what brand recall looks like here, what saliency and reorder rates look like in this spot. But I think they're definitely developing in a way where they want to be much bigger than sort of last minute, last mile grocery. And I think it's going to be super interesting for them. And then we didn't list the intraday pacing piece, which I think is also sort of fantastic and really enables brands to sort of stagger their investment throughout the course of the day without expunging budgets by like noon or so, which is happening all too often. And then CPC up, ROAS down on this one. Average CPCs were in Q2 are about 96 cents, which is about a 9% increase quarter over quarter and a 9.43 decrease year over year. Average ROAS is still at 469. So while that's down a little bit, only 2%, that's still literally the strongest one that you're going to get, especially within this environment. So a 2% dip in ROAS over a 9% increase in CPCs is actually quite good in terms of overall platform performance. And as we look towards investments, again, keep in mind here, we're just taking a look at ad spend on Instacart, so I don't want to be disingenuous about what we're looking at here. But we do see a 7% dip quarter over quarter and 10% year over year. Keep in mind, this is only search ad spend. A lot of those dollars have been reinvested into on-site display for the platform. So it looks just a bit odd now, but Instacart display has been quite the hot topic, a really great mechanism for cross-aisle plays and something we expect advertisers to continue to test in the coming months. I think what we'll find is that brands are actually much more comfortable playing with cross-aisle, in display as opposed to search, where the CPCs can be a bit more aggressive. So I actually think this is going to be a really cool one for them. Investment is still high on the Instacart side. Brands are still being aggressive in this space, but I think we're starting to find a better balance between search and then display. I think sort of to Destaney's point, the management of sort of total CPA between the different mediums that you can activate within channel is going to be something that a lot of larger brands especially are going to look for.
All right, so we are almost done. We're going to wrap up in just a second. So looking ahead, There's rumors of another Prime Day in October, so start preparing. I think, they did Prime Day in October in 2020 during the pandemic. They saw such a great benefit of pulling demand forward so that, you could spread out the deals. So I think that, we'll see that again. They're already asking for deal recommendations for that. So we'll have another way to practice Prime Day and improve from the last one. Hopefully not as many glitches. Continued inflation to impact brands and sellers. So, this Prime Day, some people just couldn't even participate because they were so profit margin squeezed. So it'll be interesting to see how inflation continues to impact how brands and sellers can continue to sell profitably online and participate in events. The price of container ships are finally going down. So that also is a big impediment, especially to sellers where the cost just skyrocketed during COVID, but we're seeing those decrease. Amazon leaning further into influencers. So I think that they're launching more functionality. There's a influencer feature, followers, that Amazon has. I don't think it has a ton of traction, but it's free. And you can email your followers about new product releases and promotions. They get alerts. So we'll see how that continues to play out. This future of Amazon private label, that's an interesting one. And one of the questions that we got, one of the biggest benefits I think of that is it's, even though Amazon private label has done really well on consumer electronics, their devices, but a lot of other places it hasn't done well. And it's been a big distraction to brands. They just get really mad and angry about the fact that there's, a new private label that just copied them. So less noise for them is going to be helpful, I think. And then new product releases from Amazon around the Amazon video builder. So turns images and text into a video slideshow with music. I think just the, continued focus on video and more formats so you can understand and learn about products is going to be helpful for the ad space. What do you guys think?
I have a really unpopular opinion on private label, so I'm cautious as to sharing it. But so generally from a regulatory standpoint, I absolutely understand. I think from a UX perspective, in terms of essentially treating it like a merch placement in many instances to offer an unfair competitive advantage is certainly something that has to be considered. Coming out of the game altogether, though, I think it's a little bit finicky for Amazon sales numbers overall. So yes, while a little bit crappy, and obviously I'm on the side of brands here, worked for brands for 20 years. But when you look at sort of how brands are trying to balance profitability, oftentimes it means that you're getting larger pack sizes, and it's really difficult to drive trial because you're in this for like, 15 or 20 bucks. You're going to buy a mouthwash and your only options are $24. While the brands may not like, a Solimo or something similar, being able to come into market with a $5 item and sort of drive penetration in the category, I think is going to be an interesting one. So I worry about what the ASP looks like on average on the service with less Amazon private label. I would imagine and would hope that 3Ps come in and take over that space. But I think as of right now, it does offer a nice sort of like lower ASP option to reduce barrier to entry.
Yeah, I'm excited that they're not going to be winning the #1 placement on the page with featured from our brands.
Yes,
I think that was always a brand question, was how do we win that placement? I'm like, well, we can't. So that's a nice tiny addition that hopefully goes away.
All right. Well, thanks for everyone sticking with us. We do have a couple of questions and we have the experts here to answer them. So why don't we start with this one from Tom McIntyre. So he's got a couple questions. I have a question about search terms for Amazon and Walmart. I've noticed many of the search terms we're paying for on Amazon are for products or a style of product we don't actually sell. Amazon is showing our ad even though the search term doesn't 100% match our product. Sounds like maybe a broad match. I don't know. What do you guys think?
You're looking at search terms. I mean, I don't know if he can answer, but I don't know if he's looking at search terms on the paid search side, or he's looking at search terms and talking about the search term report from ABA. I would say when it comes to the search term report from ABA, if you're concerned that you're popping up for items that are seemingly irrelevant, keep in mind that Amazon is very much a winner take most system. So the number of keywords that you rank for, or the better that you do on sort of like core keywords, Amazon is basically creating a neighborhood based on semantic matches, and you're ranking for a ton of sort of associated keywords within that neighborhood. Amazon does move that up and measure sales velocity attributable to the keyword every 24 hours. So you're going to see quite a bit of fluctuation there. But that would be the answer on the organic side. Again, I don't know if you're talking about the paid search side. Walmart does the exact same thing, but I'd say that the difference is that Walmart's a little bit better with its semantic matches. So Walmart has much more, or a much stronger sort of like category level visibility as opposed to Amazon, where it's completely syntactic. So it's essentially mixing and matching keywords to determine what that neighborhood looks like.
On the ad side real fast, I'll jump in and say that it sounds like you're probably relying on auto targeting or broad targeting. So if you're targeting the term t-shirt in broad match, they're probably going to show you for, t-shirt extra small, t-shirt v-neck black, and that may not be the style of your product. So you need to go in and really collect all of your search term data, figure out what's not working, figure out what is working, and then launch campaigns that are more directly targeted. So focusing on exact match and only the styles that you're focusing on and want to show up for. So everything that you're showing for on the ad side is directly within your control. It's just your targeting types and campaigns that you're launching. So be a little bit more specific. If you really don't want your ad to show, you can always negate those terms and or pause those keywords, but that could necessarily not be in your best interest. So be very careful about what you're doing on either of those, but you have direct control over everywhere your ad shows with the appropriate targeting.
And also, what's your perspective on brand name and title? And if yes, where should it be placed? Okay, we'll skip that one.
Okay, wait,
Sorry.
I do have a quick answer. From what I've heard, it's a little bit of taking up space for your actual SEO keywords, right? Amazon typically shows your brand name anyways, directly with the store page right above your title. So do you really need to take your brand name and also put it in your title when you're taking up space for keywords you could rank for? But not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
I would say that it's one of those things that people love to sort of overthink. When you think about it, and we could do like literally a 2-hour session or A9. A9 is not complicated, like it's quite easy to understand what's happening, and it's easy to sort of weight those various components. I wouldn't go too crazy with it. When somebody's looking for a brand term, your first call is going to be the byline and not the actual title. I think from a user standpoint, you can test what click-through rate and what CVR looks like by including or not including the brand name in there, but the insinuation that's not including the brand name in there is going to have a detrimental impact on sort of your SEO. I think is a little bit faulty because, again, keep in mind, as long as your bylines are consistent, you should be okay. You can be in an environment in which you've got multiple sub-brands now or line extensions and your bylines are all kinds of messed up. In turn, okay, put it in the title. I would do it as a general best practice. I always do anyways. In relation to your keywords, I would keep two things in mind. One, using the brand analytics data to actually get high volume keywords. And that can differ if you're building something inside out versus if you just want to sort of go for high category level targets out front. There are plenty of ways to do that, both in conjunction and independent of media. And making sure that they're within the first like 90 characters or so. I have to double check the actual character counts on there, but there's a difference between what Amazon will allow for indexability versus what they'll sort of shoot over to the Google side. So putting it closer to the front just guarantees that it's within indexable limits. Again, I don't remember the exact character count, but I can find it to you if you email me, and we can chat about that because I love Amazon SEO. Talk about it all the way.
And I think that I get in trouble when these go too far past and we're heading towards the hour mark. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We had a great audience and people actually stuck with us for almost the whole hour. So must mean that we're giving you some good content, and which is our goal. Just as a reminder, go to pacvue.com/reports and you can download with an S, you can download the CPC report. Thank you so much to Riyaad and Destaney. These guys are truly geniuses and thought leaders in this space. And hopefully you guys got a good view into Q2 and we'll be back for Q3. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thanks.